Hi, it's Martin from Playcraft again. Just going to give you a rundown on what we've updated in 0.5.4, which has gone out today. Two new things that were added. I'll just jump into the develop site and you can see the downloads update. We fixed a bug in array remove thanks to IM007. And we added two new effect components, spin and scale. We've fixed some bugs with the input components, and we've been playing around with the idea of the spatial component and the physics, space, dimension and direction all being lined up, or kept in sync. So let's have a look at a few of those things. First is this is the spin and scale components. So we'll just quickly walk through how to add those components in and what kind of effects they have. This is the typical standard Your Game default project template. And if we load that up, you get a really cool looking rectangle. So what we'll do is make it a little sexier by adding in some extra components, some effect components. So we'll just take the standard box component that was added. Components dot. Let's start with spin first. Create, because she's pooled. Let's see. So with the spin component, just jump to the docs so we can have a look. So the spin component has a few parameters. The first is rate. This is the degrees per second that it'll cause the entity's spatial to turn. The maximum is the maximum number of degrees that that the spin will occur before it's stopped, and the effect component is removed. Clockwise determines which direction it'll turn. We'll play around with that a little bit. The spinning is a boolean to tell you whether it's still spinning or not. And spin so far is a read-only that tells you how many degrees it's turned so far. So let's put it into action. So we'll give it a rate of 15 degrees per second. We'll set the max to 720 degrees, which will give us 2 turns. And then we'll just leave the default like that. That's pretty good. So let's go have a look at our game now. Reload it. And nothing happened. I know exactly why. So this happens pretty commonly. We don't have a great solution for it yet, but this is a pretty typical thing. I forgot to add the effects system. So adding the spin component to the entity had no effect because I don't have the effects system running. We've been playing around with providing a warning for that, but there's some cases where components can be used by multiple systems and you can't quite tell if the right system has been added or not. But right now you just have to remember that if you add a component of a particular type, you have to remember to add its system as well. So let's go back and have a look. And magically our rectangle is now spinning at 15 degrees. And if you wait for a minute, it should stop at 720. Stop. There it goes. Okay, so that was a lot of degrees. So that's pretty cool. If you like, you can make it spin the opposite direction. Clockwise equals false. Spin that up, so now it's turning the opposite direction. We can make it spin a bit faster. Let's make it 10 times faster. So now she's going to be woo, flying around. If we just drop the max altogether, it'll just keep spinning. Nice. So maybe just to make the effect a little more fun, we might add a whole bunch. Let's make 10. Let's set their position. And how big are they? They're 100. So let's add 50. So we get because we're trying to add all those components inside the for loop, which is going to be impact one. So we'll create 10 of them now. There we go, 10 of them spinning a bit fast. So pause that. Colour's a little boring, all in red. So we can switch from using a colour string to a colour array, and then just use the Playcraft ran function, 0 to 255. 255. And now we'll have a whole bunch of random colours. Nice. Still spinning a bit fast, so we might drop that down to 20. Go back to running clockwise. I might just increase the distance a little bit. So, groovy. So that's the basics of the spin component. We can make things a little sexier by now having a look at adding a scale component. So back to the docs, and if we look up the new scale component. So scale lets you change the size of something. You can either do it once by specifying an XY, so you can just say I'll add a component which is scale x2, y2, and it'll double the entity's spatial, and everything else will flow from that. If it's drawing something, that can be resized. If the sprite can be resized, if there's anything else there, it'll automatically rescale it to suit that size. So you can just use the scale component pretty simply to just set x to y2. So now all our rectangles will go really big. That's a cool effect, actually. That's probably a little bit excessive, so we might just drop that to say half size. So cool. Now they're 0.5 there. They've been expanded by 0.5. If we like, we can make those negative values to shrink them by half their original size. And you can play around with all kinds of numbers there to see the different effects you get. But we'll take that out, and I'll show you the next part of it, which is, so you can just set the size using the scale component. You can also use grow and max to have the scale change in either X or Y or both over time, and then to set a maximum for that. So they get up to a certain size in the scale component, just like the spin component getting to a certain number of angles. The scaling component will stop once it gets to the max. And again, you can see the read-onlys here, scaled X so far and scaled Y so far, tell you how far it's gone if you need that, and the scaling is a boolean that tells you whether it's still scaling or not. So we'll jump back over here and we'll set the grow X to 0.1, grow Y to 0 to the same, and we won't bother with a max. So now we've got some nice growing rectangles. I'm going pretty fast actually. And we'll drop that down a little bit. Oops, I did something wrong. Okay, wow. Okay, so I was growing Y there much faster. It's an interesting effect. I might try that. So now it's growing the Y faster than it's growing the X, so you can see the rectangles are becoming elongated. But it creates some nice effects. So the intention is that you can use this for rescaling sprites, for spinning things around, for menu effects, for just easily combining multiple effects together. And if you want to, you can change this around by adding fade as well. So that's spin and scale. Pretty soon we're going to add a bunch of other effects that let you do things like spiraling and simulating bouncing, just to make it easier to transition things on the screen and make them go away, sort of stuff. Okay, so the other thing we did, which is more groovy is an interesting word, is in the Scrollier demo. We noticed that if you make changes using effects to the spatial and the spatial component of an entity, if the entity is controlled by physics, and you might have noticed this as well, physics takes over the spatial component. So it sets that, and any changes you then make to an entity that has a spatial component associated with it will just be ignored because the physics engine is then in control. So we're experimenting with making that a two-way process now. So if you change the spatial, the physics system will see that happen. It detects that there's been a change in the spatial x, y, or direction, and then it will move the object in physics space to try and align it. So the reason I sound a bit tentative is that generally moving things around by just setting the x and y or setting the direction doesn't work very well in a physics environment. You should really be moving things by applying torque for turn and by applying force or impulse to move something around, and that's going to work well. But we left it in, so it's experimental at the moment. But for an example of that is in the Scrollier demo, the crates have a new input action called crate pressed, which is the bound to the mouse left button. So if you click on crate pressed up here, and whilst doing this we found some bugs in the input component action binding, which we fixed up. Let's see, where is it? So here's the on action handler, crate pressed. Then it does a check on the entity that has been clicked. And in this case, you notice I've gotten UI target get entity, which is what was passed in. And then checking if it has a spin component. If it does, remove it. Otherwise, it adds a spin component and sets the spin rate to 10. So you get this kind of effect where I can just press on a crate and it'll start turning, and that's staying in physics space. Now you notice that the crate is not active in physics because it's been arbitrarily, its direction is arbitrarily changing. It's not being applied with torque. If I do apply physics to anything else around it, you'll see that it'll go active in the physics engine and it'll start to act really crazy. That's basically it, trying to change direction. And that's a good idea of some of the problems that you'll start to encounter if you're just kind of arbitrarily setting directions. We'll get all these spinning and it'll create complete chaos. There we go.
Brains.
Hello, zombie. So it's a weird effect. It works if you're just doing little quick changes like setting X and Y, playing around with direction, but you can get yourself into trouble really quickly. Okay, so I think that about covers everything we've updated for 5.4. It's available for download now on the Playcraft site. Thank you very much.